resolve or whatever it is.
Gotcha.
Fans off. Pretty good. Pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah, good deal.
And our daughter's OT. Working at Nashville. Another job.
The track would be better. Driving that way.
They call it East Nashville.
Oh, yeah. 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 Who knows? I'm with you. That makes no sense.
First time I went to her house over there. Yeah, we went to her house and she said, I live in East Nashville.
Next time.
This is not East.
I wasn't here to
This is
film
North.
myself.
East Nashville's the cool part of town.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
We
bigger
got
than it
so
really
East
is.
Nashville. I live here.
so,
Oh, you're seeing.
Big houses,
Huh?
nice houses back.
I'm saying this.
Themselves.
We got
Then
the,
it got real bad run down and then it's built back.
it's far
not-
out.
Driver on the way up. I had to take a base of action 3 times.
I'll wait on General Cherry. Do we know he's going around? He didn't tell me he wasn't coming. He was just about to give me a heads up. If not, we've got 30, which is typically what the committee is anyway, so.
We got his,
Oh, I conjured him and get a.
you come on me. Is it him?
General, he said,
Judy volunteer.
she'll sit here. Come on.
Wasn't that a waffle? Huh? Waffle about that. You're into easy. You know?
My apologies. No, the court reporter. He was not trying to keep track of.
Yeah, we're playing musical chair.
Chair. All right.
Yeah, so we just open and just do a roll call, see who's here, and then we'll start. And give you some games, so I don't look this up too bad. Yeah. Can do, sir.
Oh, you got it.
Been watching.
Okay, let's bring this hearing to order. This is a hearing of Police Officer Standards and Training Commission Informal Hearing Subcommittee, August 17th, 2023. We take roll.
Turn left,
Yep.
then turn left onto Lebanon Pike.
Really is silenced, but it's not been anything. My microphone doesn't want to cooperate, so I'll just have to speak loud. So we're going to call roll. We'll call the name of the officer and then the agency. If you'll just let us know if you're here, please. Columbia Police Department. Here. Mr. Jordan Barber. Mr. Jordan Barber. And I think he did indicate to staff that he was not going to be appearing today. Shelby County Sheriff's Office,
Here.
Brian Beck. Brian Beck. Memphis Police Department. Here. Armando Bustamante. Armando Bustamante. Tennessee Department of Safety. Here. Nicholas Collins. Mr. Collins. Laverne Police Department.
I'm presenting that for the room. It was my certification.
Gotcha. And Burrell Davis. Here. See, Mr. Davis. Winchester Police Department.
Winchester is here.
Sorry. Tristan De La Cruz. Mr. De La Cruz is here. Franklin County Sheriff's Office.
They are here also in the waiting area.
All right, and then Ms. Ferris was on her way, stuck by the train. Okay. White County Sheriff's Office.
You're also.
All right. Robert Ferris. Robert Ferris. I believe he did indicate that he was not going to appear today. Patrick Ferguson of the Memphis Police Department. Patrick Ferguson. And I believe he also indicated that he could not leave the city of Memphis and would not be appearing today.
That is correct.
Metro Nashville Police Department. Granting. Sidley Gomez. Sidley Gomez. Dakota Jacob, Department of Safety.
He's in the lobby right here.
Okay. Joseph Jones of the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Here. All right, thank you, sir. Chattanooga Police Department. Here. Stephen Johnson.
Mr. Johnson just emailed me. He went to a wrong location. He'll be here momentarily.
Okay. Melanie Liggins of the Memphis Police Department. Melanie Liggins. Larry Matthews of the Memphis Police Department. Larry Matthews. The University of Memphis Public Safety. Here. Thank you, sir. Marcus Nolan.
Marcus Nolan. He said he would be here today.
Okay. Annabelle Ordonez, Memphis Police Department. She indicated she wasn't coming.
That's correct.
Samuel Outlaw of the Department of Safety. Samuel Outlaw. Knoxville Police Department. Joseph Roberts.
Joseph Roberts.
Okay, and I think you have here indicated that he wasn't coming.
That's great.
Cortez Roby, Memphis PD. Cortez Roby. Bartlett Police Department. Here. Charles Siegel.
Mr. Siegel.
Charles Siegel. James Sewell of the Memphis Police Department. Thank you, Mr. Sewell. And Ronnie Swafford of the Department of Safety.
Ronnie Swafford.
Okay. And present for the subcommittee, we have Commissioner Bob Wagner, Commissioner Brian Wright, Commissioner Steve Isbell, and Commissioner Brett Cherry, and Council Lee Ferguson.
Thank you. What I would propose to do is take some of those smaller departments, particularly ones where it's indicated we don't have the respondent appearing, and let's kind of get those done so we get those folks on the road back to wherever you came in from, and respond to the bigger departments that have some people here. Let's take the Columbia Police Department first. And whoever is representing the Columbia Police Department, they can come up to the podium, please.
If you would just identify yourself and then just explain why you're submitting the decertification.
My name is Brian Adams, I'm Lieutenant with the Columbia Police Department. We're here today to apply for the decertification of Officer Jordan Barber. Reason being was for an incident back in June of last year where it started off with a domestic argument with her boyfriend, followed into a suicidal threat made by her, which subsequent investigations led to lying during official investigations, which leaned towards her termination, which she then resigned in lieu of before that could be done.
If she had not resigned, would she have been subject to termination?
Yes, sir.
All right, and Ms. Barber is not here, is that correct?
That's correct.
Has she been served?
We have proper notification.
Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Wright, I'll make a default motion for decertification due to resignation in lieu of termination, violation of departmental policies and procedures.
Do I have a second?
Mr. Isbell, second.
All in favor? All right, this will be submitted to the committee for recommendation of decertification for resignation in lieu of termination. So let's move on down to
Question.
let's look at the sorry.
Question, will that be next month? We'll be on the agenda next month.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Let's go to White County. Do we have a representative from White County here? White County? And Robert Ferris, we have an indication that he's not here, is that correct? Okay, if you would please give us your side of this issue.
This incident dates back to November of 2019, 18 or 19. There was a domestic involving a Cookville City officer and his bride, and Officer Ferris responded to that call and did a report. In that report, it contained information that was not consistent with the body camera footage and the events that took place that day. He was spoken to about it. It was never resolved due to the fact that there were the misinformation involved. Mr. Ferris was interviewed by the White County Sheriff's Office and the District Attorney General's office. At the conclusion of all of that, it was decided that if we were going to move forward with the certification process, then the DA's office wouldn't seek charges on it. And that's where we're at today. So there were multiple policy and procedure violations and ethical issues that needed to be addressed.
And he resigned before the process was done, is that?
Yes, sir.
Was he made aware that he would be subject to possible decertification?
He was given that information in written format to decide.
And he would have been terminated had this process been completed, is that?
Yes, sir.
And again, Mr. Ferris is not present. Was he served?
Yes, and I believe he indicated to the staff that he was not going to appear.
Any questions on the part?
I have one question, Commissioner Wright. There was, I guess, some civil or legal matters that was pending in this case. Do we know if all that's been resolved?
Those all have been concluded.
All right, Commissioner Wright, I'll make a motion for a default motion for decertification due to resignation and lieu of termination or violation of departmental policies and procedures.
One point of order, did the witness identify himself? You can put that in here. Did you identify yourself?
I'm sorry.
Would you identify yourself, please?
I am Major Richard Lynch of the White County Sheriff's
Yeah,
Office.
I knew who you were, but for the record.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Isbell, second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Thank you.
If it's you,
Yes.
They need to identify themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's go to the Bartlett Police Department. Do we have a representative from Bartlett Police Department here? This is Charles Finley, and again, I take it that Charles Finley Siegel, and Mr. Siegel is not present. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Please identify yourself and give us.
I'm Lieutenant Oscar May with Bartlett Police Department. The reason why we're seeking for the decertification for Charles Siegel is he was in our training program, which consists of 78 days through the FTO program. And on day 42, he called in to the on-duty lieutenant and indicated that he was unable to make it in. And the lieutenant picked up on that there was some other problems going on and some personal problems, and he indicated that he had some problems that he needed to work through. And so the supervisor and the captain on duty went to his home and tried to find out what exactly was the problem. He was intoxicated, and he indicated that he had a substance abuse problem and that he was unable to perform his duties as a police officer. Subsequently, we offered him treatment through our EAP program, and he was interested initially. He met with our administration the next day and showed interest in that. We were offering him assistance with his substance abuse substance abuse problem, and he pretty much did not contact us after that. That's the second meeting. They continued for 2 weeks trying to get him to work through our personnel department, trying to get him assistance. He said that he was having problems at home, and he just could not handle the job with his substance abuse problems and his alcohol. He said he was an alcoholic, is what he confessed to the captain and lieutenant while they were at his home. So we continued for a couple of weeks trying to get him to go to the EAP program. He never returned our calls or our emails, and at that point, he was supposed to meet with the chief. He emailed the chief inspector indicating that he did not wish to meet with the chief of police. And so because he did not follow through with our city policy to get assistance, he resigned prior to our termination because he was not returning to work and not doing what he was supposed to do. He was terminated. He would have been terminated, but he resigned before we could terminate.
When you say he said that he had a substance abuse problem, was there anything other than alcohol that he
No. He said he was an alcoholic.
Questions from any of the other members?
Was properly served.
Yes.
Commissioner Ryan, I'll make a motion, a default motion for decertification due to resignation and lieu of termination for failure to maintain pre-employment requirements.
I'll second.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back to departments where we either have people that are appearing or some of the other, some of the larger departments who have a number of things we can take care of. Let me take that back. Let's take, again, some of these smaller departments so they can have whatever they've got on their agenda and let them get out of the way instead of waiting for a long string of other cases. Let's take the Winchester Police Department case of Tristan Javier de la Cruz. Do we have a representative from Winchester Police Department?
Yes, sir, it's done. This is the ex-officer, this is the Winchester Police Department.
All right. Mr. Dela Cruz, you feel just wait.
All right, would you like to give us the department's version of what we're doing here today?
So just identify yourself first.
That's a good idea.
Captain Jeff Miller, Winchester Police Department.
Okay, can you tell us what the circumstances are why you're seeking decertification of Officer Dela Cruz?
On the termination of Officer Dela Cruz, he was terminated from the Winchester Police Department due to a domestic situation. From what my understanding was and has been dismissed at this time. There were numerous other charges that have come down the pike on Mr. Dela Cruz, all of which at this time, from what I've been informed, are still pending in court. And I couldn't give you the whole list of what those charges are at this time. But after all the charges came down, after the extensive conversation with Mr. Bello, it was decided to start the process at that time.
And again, was he terminated? At what point was he terminated?
He was terminated right after an incident in Shelby County. The best I remember was a domestic type situation where he did end up being arrested.
Okay, he was arrested, but to your knowledge, did that particular charge?
To my knowledge, that particular charge was dismissed later on.
But there are other charges that are still pending.
There are other charges that are pending.
Are those related to that same incident or the other incidents, or?
I think it all stems back to an ex-wife in one way or another.
All right.
That's just an opinionated guess, I guess you could say.
So when he was terminated, what was the specific reason for his termination?
Best I remember, and I'm sorry, I'm ill prepared this morning. Best I remember, it was violation of policy and procedures. And he was terminated actually while he was incarcerated at the Shelby County Jail. We after an arrest, we didn't have an employee that was under arrest.
Questions from the other board members?
Mr. Wright, I don't see the point here on why they were presented. Is it fair to maintain fair employment or violation of?
Would have been for the termination.
What's our,
Yeah, he's here.
oh, he is here.
Okay, let's hear from Officer Dela Cruz then. Let's hear his side of the story. Could you please identify yourself and just basically kind of tell us your?
Tristan Xavier Dela Cruz, work for Winchester Police Department.
Okay, kind of tell us what your side of the story is here and why you think you should not be certified.
I've been waiting a trial for going on 3 years now, over 3 years. I had a trial coming up and it got dismissed because the DA wanted to go on a bike ride in Paris. I haven't had one since.
It was dismissed or continued?
Continued.
Could you tell us what you were charged with, what the charges are that are still pending?
Domestics, aggravated domestics, aggravated kidnapping, the list to go on.
And is this all related to that single incident that you were first arrested for?
Yes, sir, it is. I was in Coffee County. I had went through 2 shootings back to back through my department. I went there to talk to her. There was no arguments, no fights, no domestic. The officers that arrived, they gave me the option to call a ride because I was intoxicated. My phone was dead. I had nobody to call. They arrested me for domestic violence that night. It has been dismissed since then. And then a couple weeks later, I had 12 warrants.
Are you represented by counsel?
I do have a lawyer, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have a court date?
I do. I was supposed to have probably about my 20th one this past or August, and got continued to September, I believe, about mid-September.
I would suggest this may be one that we should put off until these cases are resolved, and perhaps put Mr. De La Cruz in a suspended status, or his case in suspended status pending the completion of the court cases. We can take a look and see what's happening.
Yes.
Again, what's your court date again?
Maybe September, about mid-September.
Okay, so yeah, it would probably be appropriate to continue this case until our October docket, and we can take it up again. All right, and I'll make that motion.
I will second that motion, Commissioner Wright.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll take this up again October. Good luck.
When, sir?
In October,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
and you'll get notice before the hearing comes up that we're going to look at this again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
If I could just address something real quick. Kevin Creed, post investigator. October's meeting, I believe, is just a formal only. It's not an informal set. So it'd have to be.
Okay.
November.
Okay.
Okay.
In any event, we'll give you notice so that you know it'll be here, and we can address that issue at that point.
Yes.
Thank you.
So it looks like probably November.
Our November meetings. Count.
So maybe offsite.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll just address that.
We'll stay in
but
check
we can
and see what happens in September with this court date, and then we'll figure out, we'll schedule it accordingly from there.
All right. I understand we have some interest in the press on one of our cases, and perhaps we should take that out so that we can get that done, and those folks can get away without waiting all day for these other more involved departments. Let's take out the case of Laverne Police Department and Burrell Calvin Davis II. And if we could have the department come up, or a representative from the department.
The firm's not present. This is something the formal post-commission wanted an investigation done on that I conducted. And then it's on the informal agenda for the post-commission doing the certification process.
Okay, so,
Laverne did not file the certification on this.
okay, so the post commission is pursuing this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And do we have a formal hearing already coming up?
We had it under new business under. No, okay.
Yeah, the formal that he used is regular post-commission meeting. I think that's what confused this was just something the commission asked him to go look into. And then when he came back with his findings, the commission decided to go ahead and move it to an informal disciplinary hearing. And so that's where we're at today.
Okay,
Formal meeting, not a formal hearing.
right. Yeah, okay, so this is a formal, informal
Yes,
hearing.
that's right. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Okay, that's a little confusing, but let's hear what the case is.
Sure. On February 6th of this year, Mr. Davis was terminated from the Laverne Police Department. It was an international news media case. I believe there is still pending civil litigation on this case, and we just wanted to get on the agenda. And if it's still pending litigation, I don't know if you want me to go forward with the facts and findings.
Well, let's just make a record.
Sure.
Let's go ahead. and just-
So Chief Davis was terminated on February 6th of 2023 after the Laverne government conducted an independent investigation with a law firm. The law firm concluded that Chief Davis violated several policies and procedures with the Laverne Police Department. They actually had a conclusion that Chief Davis was aware of inappropriate sexual activity between officers, including superior officers and subordinates, as well as shocking widespread sharing within his department of nude photos and videos of female officers. Chief Davis admittedly received some of these inappropriate photographs and videos. He never voluntarily disclosed doing so. Chief Davis never reported this activity to the city's Human Resources Department, nor did he discipline any of the officers involved. When Officer Hall was hospitalized December 8, 2022, Chief Davis did not report his prior knowledge of her sexual activity with Sergeant Lewis Powell. When Hall and Powell were denied inappropriate sexual activity during the initial investigation, Chief Davis did not disclose to the Director of Patent or others he knew or even believed them to be lying. Finally, the evidence available to us to compel the conclusion that Chief Davis misled Director Patton in his January 6th interview, and he was misled this investigation on February 23rd. So they accused him of creating a hostile work environment and letting sexual activity go during his watch, pretty much.
All right. And the investigation's conclusion, is there a recommendation for decertification in that investigation? Where does our recommendation for decertification come from?
The formal meeting we had. So the post investigators are requesting him to be decertified for violation of policies and procedures and creating a hostile work environment within the city of Laverne.
All right, so that's the conclusion of the investigation.
That is correct.
Recommendation.
That is correct.
And I'm sorry, did we have you identify yourself on the record?
I did. Kevin Creed.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
If I recall correctly, Chairman Parton had asked why the other officers from Laverne PD had come and been sent for decertification for being terminated for what Chief Davis was eventually terminated for as well. And so he had asked for our investigators to look into that, which is why we're at this concluded.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the members of the board?
Either from this commissioner, right, either from Investigator Tree or maybe Mr. Davis himself about what court proceedings are still surrounding this case. Kind of let us know.
I'm aware of two separate lawsuits, civil lawsuits going on right now. I don't know if there's any others besides that. I believe Ms. Hall's represented by an attorney in a civil litigation. And then also I believe Mr. Powell's in litigation also.
All right, Chief Davis, would you like to come forward and kind of tell us your side of the story?
Earl Davis, former police chief of Verne Police Department. First of all, the independent investigation was not so independent. I was not supposed to be the only target of this investigation. My allegations that throughout the investigation that came out against the mayor was supposed to be the second target of this investigation. However, if you look at the independent investigation, you'll see that the mayor assisted the independent investigator in retrieving information supposedly against me in that. Also, the charges that the hostile work environment, the sexual harassment, if you go into this, Megan Hall or anyone from the city of Laverne ever filed any complaint against me for creating a hostile work environment or sexual harassment. Only reason why this came out is because of the independent investigator, which was well after Megan Hall had been terminated, Tom McGowan been terminated, Louis Powell been terminated. Those three specifically were terminated because they were untruthful and undercarried throughout the investigation, which is why they were sent for decertification. And I bring that point up to say, if I created a hostile work environment, who is the victim? This didn't come out by city policy. The employee has the responsibility of reporting hostile work environment or sexual harassment did not happen while she was employed there or anybody employed there, even during the investigation when she had 4 different interviews. She had Director Patton's telephone number, email address. This only came out after Tom McGowan sent private personal text messages between, a friend of 15 years between me and him in 3 or 4 days after he was terminated. So I go back to say, if I created a hostile work environment, who's the victim? She wasn't an employee at the time that the text message was turned in. He wasn't an employee at the time that the text message was turned in. They accused me of sexual harassment. Again, who's the victim? She was an employee, nothing was, and sexual harassment because I received pictures, unsolicited pictures. And I got terminated because of sexual harassment because I received the pictures. That's not one of the things that's in Laverne City policy. I honestly would like an opportunity to go to the full commission so I can present the employee handbook, submit the transcript from when Ty McGowan, when he had Ty McGowan had 2 interviews with Director Patton, and the formal that he had, Director Patton had already discredited his text messages saying they were inaccurate and manipulated. So I look at it as, well, if you've already determined that these text messages are manipulated and not accurate, how is it when it comes to trying to prosecute me or terminate me that they're good and accurate? Also, looking back at Ty McGowan, he had already, in 2007, had already been found guilty of a Garrity violation for the same situation for sex. So there's a lot of inconsistencies with the independent investigation, to include the person by city charter, the mayor has the high, firing, and promotion powers. For the person to have those powers be involved in what they call the independent investigation, I honestly think is inappropriate. Also, there could be information that the mayor knew about this prior to his reelection in November of 22. So there's a lot of things that comes along with this that I never got an opportunity to defend myself because there's no appeal process. They sent me home on February the 6th that morning about 9 o'clock. I was fired at 6. So there was no opportunity for me to bring any of these things out. So that's my story. There's other things, you know, for the sake of time, there's other things that can be brought out, but you know, if this can be moved to a formal hearing, I'll have an opportunity then. I would just want certain people here to where they can be questioned about things that I've just advised you all of today.
Chief Davis, if the role of this body is to,
I'm sorry, sir.
The role of this body is to make a recommendation as to whether this should be presented to the full commission. That's where the final action would come. And at that hearing, you would have an opportunity to present witnesses if you want. You can be represented by counsel. And
also add one more thing in regards to this. This whole thing started because of the text messages from Ty McGowan that was sent in after he was terminated. And it was determined by the city administrator that, oh, even though these are private text messages, because they're talking about work, then now they become work related. And I did an open records request for these documents to show me where private text messages between friends of 15, 16 years work related, and they couldn't produce any of those things. So there's a lot of things that needs to come to light. And this is my first time publicly talking about any of this. And I will say that I is still with the EEOC right now in the investigation stage. I will, depending on what their outcome is, they've had it for a month now, investigation stage, whether they're going to represent or give me the right to sue. There will be litigation coming from me as well against the city.
so there is a pending court case or a case with the EEOC?
Well, right now, there's one, Megan Hall's lawsuit against us. But once I get to the point where they either issue the right to sue or say they're going to, you know, make a determination of discrimination from the EEOC, there will definitely be something from my end on this.
Okay, well, are you
just haven't got to that point? I can give you all the charge number if you all want that.
Are you named as a party in that action?
I am. I'm named in her action only because of the results of the independent investigation. So it's a mess. Let me just in simple terms.
Just one other thing I'd just like to ask you about. The impression I get from what I've read in the record that we have, it appears to me that one of the reasons that you're kind of facing the heat is that you were actually the man at the top of the department, and that allegedly you were aware that some things were happening, whether it came through formal channels or not, and that you didn't take action to inform HR or to go to the mayor or somehow take action on this sooner than what happened. And
If I could shed some light on that.
yes, if you please.
The Verne city policy allows for relationships. It's in city policy, and it says it's the responsibility of the employees post-hire to disclose that information to a supervisor, department heads, city administrator. And that's not where I got information from. And the reason why they say that I misled them, because I told them these text messages were not accurate. You know, there were pictures that was missing because I asked the question, who is that? And there's nothing before that. It just starts off with, who is that? And the pictures are not there. So the only way that I knew or supposedly knew about sex in the Verne Police Department is because Tom McGowan said Paul and Powell. There were no pictures of any identifiable male. It didn't come from her. It didn't come from him. And the fact that they said that I misled them and didn't say anything on December the 8th, what they didn't say was when Megan Hall called out of work because she had a medical crisis, she called Lewis Powell. Myself and Director Patton thought that was pretty peculiar. Why would she call the K-9 sergeant and not her second shift sergeant? And I said, well, let me call him in off the road to find out why this happened like this. So I called him in and said, hey, why did she call you instead of calling her supervisor? Well, I'm the active supervisor of that. I said, okay. I took a step further. Hey, is there anything I need to know that you all involved with each other, anything like that? No, boss, we're not involved. I took that information back to Director Patton and told him, hey, he told me that, first of all, he's the acting supervisor today, which he was. And the second part, he told me that they were not involved. That was before my independent investigation. That's not misleading anybody. He told me no. Yes, even though McGowan said it was them two on the pictures. To me, that's a lie now because I heard it from the guy's mouth. And there's a particular picture with Megan Hall with a foot in her mouth. And I hate to be graphic in here, but Tom McGowan has a foot fetish. That's why the pictures wasn't sent in with the text messages that he brought in, because it would have disclosed his relationship with her. I asked Director Patton, why didn't you ask about those pictures? Who were the males in those pictures with her? No, we're just moving forward. I'm not going back on that. Asked Director Patton, hey, did you ask the mayor when he found out about this information? Because it was definitely before December 12th. You know, Director Patton knew or felt that the mayor was involved some kind of way. He even secretly recorded him. I have those recordings. I have the text messages that the mayor told Todd to go meet with Director Patton off-site. The day after McGowan gets sent home on an admin leave, he calls Director Patton into his office and backs off of McGowan. No, that's not my guy. I got it from a secret squirrel. And he asked, well, who is it? Oh, somebody from the outside. And that's the same thing that he did during the investigation, the independent investigation, when the independent investigator asked him who was his source. He refused to give up his source. He refused to say when he learned of the information. So there's just a lot of inconsistencies here that need to be ironed out. Is it worth me being decertified over? No, but it needs to come out because that never came out. These things were readily available on all of the transcripts that all the news media and everybody had an opportunity to see. It was all available for them. The fact that Director Patton already knew that Ty's text messages wasn't valid. He talked to him, had 2 interviews with him. He didn't turn any of that stuff in. It was only after he was terminated to where, oh, I'm gonna get back at Chip because, excuse me, Pearl, everybody call me Chip, get back at me because of him being terminated and yes, decertified. Well, you lied under Garrity. I already had 2 cases with the Post Commission for guys who got lied under Garrity. So if I did it for them, I had to do it for everybody else. Not that I wanted to, just the fact of just being consistent.
Chief Davis, it sounds to me like you've got
I'm sorry.
It sounds to me like you have a lot that you'd like to present to be considered in your case. And this is not necessarily the forum for you to present the entire case, because this is something that would go forward with the full commission for consideration. The big question that I have right now is whether or not this is a case that we should basically suspend until your other proceedings are complete. I don't know if there's is there some input as far as that is concerned? Are you represented by counsel in these other cases in the EEOC?
With the making home?
Yeah.
Yes, and once I get to the point of the right to sue or whatever, then the same attorney will probably pick that up, which is whatever you all want to do. Yes, there is a lot that needs to come out that didn't come out. It's very one-sided. I understand the political side of all of this, the way that things look, but there's a lot more to this that needs to come out.
Right. And again, my question right now is whether this should be suspended pending the resolution of these EEOC claims before we go forward in this body to consider your decertification. I'm open to some.
Mr. Chair, if you'll turn that into a motion, I think it'd be consistent with what we've done with Bristol Verne.
Okay, I'll make that a motion, and then if you give me some discussion, just so I feel good about this.
I think you're on the right track, I'll say.
Any discussion? Or any guidance?
One question I'd like to ask Mr. Davis, on the EEOC, there's a time limit on your.
It's a time limit after they,
No.
well, I don't know if there's a time limit if they decide to represent me or not, but if they issue the right to sue, it's 90 days.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question if somebody, how do I get people here to question those people? If it comes to that,
the investigators, or who are you talking about?
I can communicate with.
Yeah, I think if you just communicate with our office here, and let us know who you want to appear. I think we'll try to accommodate you best we can.
Great. It's a lot. I will say this a lot. It's embarrassing. You know, I've been through a lot. Family's been through a lot. You know, but it's not what it appears. It's not what it appears. And it needs to come out.
If I may, let me just put a couple of things on record. Chief Davis, how long have you been in law enforcement?
I started in law enforcement. I went to the academy here in 1998, but it was with a state agency at the time. They wasn't certified. So 2003 was my first certification with the Verne Police Department. August the 11th would have made 20 years there. Before that, I was with Juvenile Court Warrant Division.
So you've been in this business for a while?
Yes.
Okay, what are you doing now?
I'm a house dad right now. In all honesty, I'm on dialysis right now, and my dialysis schedule Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, 11:30 to 3:30. So it's best for me to just focus on my health. Hopefully, here soon that there'll be another transplant, but that'll be out of the way now. But so there's a lot of things pending now, but this is something that I have to get off of me to be able to move forward. Either way.
Well, best wishes for your health issues. Hope that comes together.
I can't be.
Best wishes to you, sir, for your health issues.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, we have a motion to essentially suspend this action until the EEOC claims are concluded. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will basically table this until we hear something about your EEOC claims. And if you would please contact us, or we'll try to monitor that just so we know when we can pick this up again and go forward.
Great, thank you.
All right, let's take the cases up for for Franklin County Sheriff's Office and Emily John Davis. Is Franklin County here?
Franklin County.
I thought we had an indication that we had somebody in Franklin County. Anybody from Franklin County?
Ferguson. I believe Miss Ferris just got here as well.
Okay, great. Can you please identify yourself for the record and basically tell us why you're seeking certification of Ms. Ferris?
Yes, sir. My name is Sergeant Sam Davidson with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. This request for decertification started back in 2000. I think there was some time they were unable to identify, or unable to locate Ms. Ferris. But the way this started was she went on family leave April 27th of 2020. And that family medical leave expired July 18th of 2020. Because she was an SRO at the time, she had, they have comp time that they build up through the year to make it through the summer. So she was given a return to work day of September 1st, 2020. She did not comply. She did not return to work on September 1st. She was again given a deadline of September 21st, 2020. And she did not come to work, and she was ultimately terminated for that. Prior to the September 21 date, people from our agency went to her house to check on her patrol vehicle. It was found to be in a terrible state of disrepair. It's my understanding, I talked to the mechanic this week, there was, I think they worked for about a week, 2 weeks, just to get it cleaned out. And then there were obviously mechanical issues like battery, all the things that needed to be done because the vehicle had to be driven. The original request asked that she be decertified because she abandoned her duties with the office and also did not comply with the policies that we have, which is maintaining a issued patrol vehicle.
Questions from the other commissioners? Okay, Ms. Ferris, would you like to come to the podium and identify yourself and tell us your side of the story here, please? Yes, can you identify yourself and then tell us your side of the story, why you should not be decertified, but basically what your response is to these claims we've just heard?
I was diagnosed with autoimmune disorder in 2019, called Graves' disease. It came suddenly out of nowhere. I was very, very sick. I continued to work while I was sick. The sheriff and the chief were made aware of my sickness. I did go get medical treatment while I was still working, but I was still very ill. I continued to work up until probably March of 2020. I think COVID had hit right around that time. So it was a culmination of being sick and stressed from COVID and working at the school and having to work security at the hospital. It was a lot going on. It's very stressful for me. And I needed a mental break. I was still on medication. It was not really working for me. So I requested some time off. And just talking to the chief, I could tell he was not happy with that. But I needed to take some time off. I did. I took a week off, I think, when I was first diagnosed with Graves' disease, and I continued to work. But at that point, it was starting to come back and get worse. My car at the time, it was in decent condition. There was something wrong with it. It wasn't working properly. And I just kind of let it go. And I take full responsibility for that. After I talked to the chief and told him I needed to take some time off, he let me take some time off. I felt like I needed to talk to someone about my mental issues. So I received therapy, which was very helpful. In the process of receiving therapy, I felt like I was harassed by some of the people, not coworkers or anything like that at the sheriff's department, but there was one particular lady would call me and call my therapist and ask her, she asked her on several occasions what we had discussed in private. She also suggested that maybe they should come to my house and take my guns. I had not made any threats toward anyone. I did not make, any self-harm comments. But I just felt like I was being harassed. Graves' disease, it's a lot that it does to your body. Your thyroid controls all of the functions in your body. So it's like everything was out of whack. It also makes you very anxious and depressed. So that just progressively got worse. I didn't feel supported. I felt like I couldn't trust anybody. I was still very, very ill and trying to get well. I was unable to get my medication. And so it was like everything just fell apart. And I didn't feel comfortable going back to the sheriff's department after the things that happened to me. I didn't feel like I could trust them, and that I didn't feel protected. So I quit all communication. I wasn't ready to go back physically or mentally. And so they terminated me in September of 2020.
At what point did your physical circumstances change? So what point did you become, should we say, well enough to basically participate in different kinds of activities where you could have, had you wanted to, return to the department?
It's taken me about 2.5 years to get to some kind of normal. I chose not to go back to the medication. There were a lot of side effects. And I just started trying to eat better and, take vitamins, natural things to help me stay healthy. The anxiety is much less.
Are you working at this point?
Yes.
Where are you working at?
I work at the Dollar General. I've been there 6 months. And I want to go back to Graves' disease. It takes your energy. It affects your heart. It affects your mind, your emotions. I couldn't physically, to walk from here to the end of that wall was like, I felt like I'd walked 10 miles. I had no energy. I was really sick. The job that I'm doing now is a lot of physical work. So I feel like I can go back and do what I did before. It's very strange.
Let me ask you what you're anticipating in the future as far as law enforcement. Do you have any intentions of returning to law enforcement?
I do. I'm not sure at what capacity, but I love my job, and that's my life. I've been in law enforcement over 20 years, and I would love to get back into law enforcement. Like I said, I'm not sure at what capacity, but yes.
Thank you. Questions from other board members?
Commissioner Ismail, not so much a question, just a comment. So we're approaching 3 years.
Next month. September.
And while obviously there's policy violations in the department, and in my mind, it rises a level of decertification. I just wanted to throw it out there for some discussion. I just have some, a pause on these start for me.
Well, I'll join you that. I have some concerns about whether it's appropriate or not. If you want to put that in the form of a motion, we can have a discussion.
Sure. Make a motion to deny the decertification in this case.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
Commissioner Wright, Ms. Ferris, do you think that you could pass physical agility and psychologicals and things of that nature now to get back into the department?
Yes,
You believe you have the mental capacity to do whatever could be called of you in the capacity of law enforcement officer?
yes.
I don't have a question, but a comment. You're right at the 3-year mark, which means she has to go back to transition school.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Well, my mic's not working,
Okay,
but maybe this one will work. My comment is, they're not working. My comment is, in 3 years, which is September next month, if you're not employed for then, you have to go back to transition school, which is a 3-week course at the academy. You think you can do that?
I think so.
I just want you to be aware of it.
Okay,
3 years, after 5 years, you have to go back to the academy. After 3 years, you have to go to a 3-week transition school.
3 weeks.
Yes, correct. The transition school is a 3-week, 120-hour program. And I would also point out that she's been out long enough where she would have to pass on the psychological medical also.
And with that being said, we got to wait. Frank,
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're denying the application for decertification, so your certification will remain in place. We're going to send this up as a matter to the full commission for their approval, but typically they will accept our recommendation and will not go forward for decertification.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take up Chattanooga Police Department and the case of Stephen Lynn Johnson.
Oh, where is mine?
Identify yourself and give us the agency's version of what you want us to do.
Sergeant Mike Taylor of Chattanooga Police Department. Decertification hearing on Officer Stephen Johnson. Following his termination from our agency by then Chief David Roddy back in 2022. This is for sustained allegations of unbecoming conduct and untruthfulness. To give you some context, this comes as a complaint from Mr. Nicholas Clark. Mr. Clark is the ex-husband of Officer Johnson's then girlfriend. They had a child in common. Mr. Clark and Officer Johnson's girlfriend, I think it was Amy Clark. Also, Mr. Clark was remarried at this time to Miss Heather Clark. So I think Amy and Mr. Clark were working through some issues with Emma, was their child that they had in common. They were trying to come to some understanding on child visitation and custody and that kind of thing. Back in June 2020, Nicholas Clark signed Emma up for softball, and Officer Johnson volunteered to help coach that softball team. Their relationship was not a good one, obviously, Mr. Clark and Officer Johnson. It was communicated to Officer Johnson that they would prefer, or Mr. Clark would prefer, that he withdraw from coaching. About the time that that was communicated to Officer Johnson, there were a couple of Facebook posts that were made under a name Bob Everett that were, they thought, veiled threats. One was to Mr. Clark's, he owned his own business. It was his business's Facebook page. Another post was made to his current wife's employer's Facebook page. Again, Mr. Clark thought that they were veiled threats, and based on the timing, he assumed that it was probably Officer Johnson that made the post. This was sent out to, at that time, his chain of command to investigate. And while it was pending investigation, Officer Johnson also had a text thread back and forth with Mr. Clark, in which he apparently unaware that an internal affairs case had already been opened. He encouraged Mr. Clark to file a complaint, but said if he did, he would have him arrested on felony charges. His chain of command investigated. He was interviewed by a sergeant. In the course of that interview, he denied making the post. He denied knowing who this person was that made the post. It was the Bob Everett name. He denied knowing who Mr. Clark's wife was and where she worked, his current wife. After that interview, his sergeant pulled his city-owned laptop, looked at his browser history, and found that he had in fact gone to these different Facebook pages and had gone to this Bob Everett's Facebook page, and it was around the time that those posts were made. Because there was an untruthfulness aspect now in play, it was kicked back to internal affairs for us to look into. He was interviewed by me in the course of that investigation, and he was just asked, is there anything that you want to change about your statement? Initially, he said no. Everything he said to a sergeant, which was recorded, everything he said to a sergeant was true. He was then presented with the browser history from his laptop, and he started to come up with these theories about how his laptop had been left unguarded, and that there were other officers in the agency that were familiar enough with his personal life that they could orchestrate these posts. Eventually, when the logistics and the story and everything just wasn't meshing and didn't make a lot of sense, he came off of it and admitted that out of frustration over Mr. Clark's continued involvement and interference with his girlfriend's ability to see her daughter, he was frustrated and he made the post, and all the allegations that Mr. Clark had made were in fact true, and he made the post himself under a false Facebook page. So he was, after a hearing and review at multiple levels, he was sustained on untruthfulness and unbecoming conduct and terminated from our agency.
Thank you. Questions from any of the members? All right, let's have Mr. Johnson. You can come forward and identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is Stephen Johnston.
And please give us your side of the story.
So everything that Sergeant informed you on is accurate. The events leading up to it, yes, my then girlfriend had left her ex-husband. They were not actually working on custody. He was bullying her and threatening her with lawyers and all this to force her to just give up full custody, as well as making a statement which was recorded that if you'll just sign everything over, I'll leave your boyfriend alone. And if you give me all custody and waive all your rights to the child, I'll leave your boyfriend alone and I'll leave you alone. Coming up to the softball, hadn't dealt with him in quite a while. The coach was looking for volunteers to help. Since I had a good schedule with the department, I volunteered to help because the coach knew of Mr. Clark and myself. He pulled us both aside, said, are you two going to be able to help coach the team together and leave your personal issues aside? We both agreed. We said, yes, we can do this. It's not a problem. This is for the girls so that they can learn to play softball. Later that evening, Mr. Clark messaged my then wife saying that if I showed up to help after I'd already done the background check and paid the fees, he said that if I showed up to help, he would take Emma off the team and would file harassment charges with my department. So not wanting to hinder Emma in her growth, I backed off. He then continued chain communication with my wife, Amy, basically threatening her every day with not seeing the child, not this, not that, and attempting to continue to harass me about my work as a police officer. And at that point, I lost my professionalism and my military bearing, and I lashed out to him. Nothing vulgar was said. One of them was just a comment about something he had posted, showing a picture on a TV that he had mounted, which was a scene from a movie called Fight Club. All I had said was, you broke the first rule of Fight Club, which is you don't talk about it. Then posted on Miss Clark's page, I wouldn't have you sell my home or anything because of the way she was treating us as well. He is still constantly harassing me and going and doing open records requests with the department and continuously trying to find where I work to try and have me fired from them. I attempted to apply for Hamilton County, and he called and harassed them until they dropped my packet. So even though I made my mistakes and finally realized that I was making more mistakes by not being truthful with the sergeant, and I took the punishment that I deserved, I'm still dealing with repercussions of him constantly harassing me and my wife over the child and this incident. And he's gone so far as to publicly state to other people that I would rape his daughter.
Any questions from members of the commission?
Mr. Johnson, what are you currently doing?
I'm currently working for a friend of mine who owns his own company.
Do you have aspirations of being back in law enforcement?
At some time I would like to, but currently I had applied for 2 local municipalities in my area. But currently with the projects we have going on at work, I've kind of put those on hold because of where we're going towards.
Mr. Johnson, I think there are probably at least a couple of us in the room who have had to deal with issues related to divorce, ex-wives, and possibly other men in the lives of our ex-wives. And there is very likely some sympathy for what you've had to deal with in that regard. But the other issue that we have to deal with has to do with your dishonesty during the investigation of the case. And I sense that you have some real regrets about not being more upfront and honest with the investigators, but that's a big issue in our law enforcement community. And for that reason, I think this is something that needs to go forward to the full commission to consider, and not just a smaller subcommittee. And for that reason, I will make a motion to go forward to the full commission. Sorry. Any discussion or
Commissioner Wright, I mean, bringing up the untruthfulness, we know how important this board does take truthfulness. And right now, with all the scrutiny on law enforcement officers, I don't think it could be any brighter light on law enforcement, and especially the untruthfulness part. So I would be more in line for his certification myself. Just for instance, I take that as a second. Your motion was to full hearing, correct?
To forward the full hearing for the certification. I think that's basically what we have to do at this stage. We don't have the power to just decertify here. We got to send it.
We do have the power. Before this board, they had 30 days to appeal. Mr. Chair, sorry.
Comment. This is Commissioner Wagner. I think it needs to go to the full commission, because I understand the truthfulness issue. I understand where this officer is with his life and stuff like that. But I think it needs to be more than just the 3 or 4 of us. I think it needs to be full commission.
If I may,
I'm gonna vote against decertification.
That's fine, because it's not officially a motion yet. It's just, I think, I mean, who better let legal speak on this than I, but they would have the right to appeal, and that appeal would go before the full commission if they did look to appeal. So,
Which is the only thing I want to go to the full commission. So either way. But he would have to appeal within 30 days.
Well, my motion will remain the same to send this forward to the full commission for their consideration. Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Okay, so we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, well, where does the tie leave us?
Well, your motion didn't pass, so we could entertain another motion. Assuming that the respondent appeals procedurally, both of your motions end up at the same place.
Commissioner Wright, I'll make a motion for decertification.
Commissioner Isabel, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh,
No.
no.
Okay, so we are at an impasse.
Can I ask a question, just for clarification for myself, Commissioner Isabel? So we do have the authority to decertify in an informal. And tomorrow it goes for the full commission to approve our action today, correct? So if the full commission disagrees with our action that we take today, if it is decertification, then that would pause and then it would hearing before the full commission at a later date. Correct? But we have the authority today to decertify.
So procedurally, what would happen is if you all vote today to decertify the officer will receive a letter that says that because it's an informal meeting that can be appealed within 30 days, and then it will go before the full commission. Tomorrow, the commission will hear the results of what this subcommittee has heard and recommended. However, they won't get all the facts that you've received here. So they really are relying on the decision of this body moving forward. But whether this commission makes a motion to just go directly to a hearing, or if you vote to desert and the officer appeals, the end result is there will be a hearing before the full commission. It's just whether the commission has taken an action on the certification before and it's an appeal, or if it's just considered a matter of, I guess, a first impression more really for the commission.
Commissioner Wright,
Well, and I'll also throw out that decertification is not your only option. There's also suspension and probation, just to give you some more colors on your palette.
I have a question for Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson, if you were decertified by this informal body, you heard that it has to go before the full commission and all to be approved, but granted that all happened and you had the right to appeal, would you appeal?
Again, with things going on in my life, I don't know if appealing, because what does decertification entail? Is it a permanent ban, or is it, I would have to go back through the training again?
It is a permanent in the state of Tennessee.
Then I would appeal.
You get away.
If you were to vote for decertification, you would have to get hired, and that agency would then file a waiver to come before the board to essentially have you rescind that decision, and then you
No,
would
well,
have
not
to,
rescind it, but waive it, but the officer would have to start over.
you have to go back to Cleveland Academy.
And we have, Commissioner Isabel, with the discussion, I mean, we have a full admittal of truthfulness. It's simply one thing that can't be compromised in law enforcement. And with that, regardless of what action this board takes today, testifying in court from this point forward, I mean, it's there's not a future in law enforcement for Mr. Johnson.
And if I may also, I mean, I know our post staff has a pretty full document as well. It's something I want to consider.
This Commissioner Wagner, on the other side, we granted waivers for this before. So what makes it any different with this case? He at least admits to what he did. I know some waivers that we passed it didn't admit it. We just made the decision. So there's two sides of it.
The makeup of that party at the time might not be the same.
Well, I know, I understand what you're saying, but You know, I don't feel like I should vote for decertification to give him, to give the appearance that, the full commission that, we don't want him to be decertified forever, you know,
Okay,
that's not fair.
I got another question for Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson, if this was to go before the full commission, are you going to appear and present evidence and do all that to retain your certification before the full board?
To the best of my ability, sir.
There is one other option, if I'm correct, is to submit your certification back into post, surrender. And if later he chose to try to get back into law enforcement, then this would all come up again before the commission at that time.
That would be the case too if you request or made a motion for a suspension to the period where it would be 5 years out of law enforcement, then that would also trigger return to basic and a waiver. So procedurally, you do end up with some similar outcomes with different.
So he's already, when were you terminated, Johnson?
Early 2021, no, because I was still with COVID.
I've got February 11th of 2021 is what when we received notification, was termination. So he's about 2.5 years and
Yeah, so he's got till February.
he's got till next February before transition school kicks in. And then
I
another
don't
4
mind
years
the
from there
transition.
before the
I
full
don't mind the
academy kick in.
transition school. I mean, you know, he's been out long enough to go back through transition. I don't have a problem with that. I just, you know, I'd feel better if we suspended it until, or let him appeal it within 30 days.
Or you can surrender it
That's
voluntarily.
what I'm saying. He can voluntarily surrender it until, for what time period? That's what I'm thinking. Because if he surrenders it until after February of 24, he goes back to transition school, which is a 3-week school. Majority of it, I think, still online in the director. Majority of transition schools online.
Yes, sir. Yeah, they come for 2 days up front and about 2 days on the back end. The rest of it's online.
So I would go for that if y'all want to suspend it till February 24th, then let him apply again or whatever you want to call it. But we'll have to change Brian will have to change it.
So are you making a motion then that we would suspend?
No, I
his
think you already made a
certification
motion.
I think motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion then that we suspend it until February of 24, which puts him technically, would it have to be March or February? Past the 3 years.
Yeah, his termination date was February 11th, so it would have to be somewhere beyond that.
February 15th.
February 15th, 2024. I'll make a motion, we do that, suspend that. And then you have to have the understanding that you have to, it's your initiative to do it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's my motion.
Okay, so just so I understand, so at the end of that suspension, what happens?
He has to have a job or reapply with somebody.
Correct.
And go back to transition schools.
Okay, but at that point, his certification is still intact.
I believe the rules say that he has to come back before the board.
He has to come back.
Reinstated, I think, after his suspension.
But what I'm saying is he comes back with suspension and we put it to February 15th, which is after that, makes him go back to transition. But he's still got to have a job before he can do that.
Correct.
See what I'm saying? So you have from 2024, you have 2 more years before you have to go back to the academy.
Yes, sir.
But you still have to come back for it.
Okay, I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, come on.
Okay, looks like we're in another impasse.
Well, no, we talked about him surrendering it. What if he surrenders it till then?
Are we in the same situation?
Yeah, I'm still not going. He's accepting responsibility. He's doing some suspension. And then he may not even get a job. Agency may not even hire him. But at least he has an opportunity for 2 years there before he has to go back to the cabinet.
Mr. Johnston, I'm thinking, just so you understand what's going on here, we're kind of in an impasse in this committee. I'm thinking of changing my vote to vote for the certification, just so we can get this up to the board, which would require, if you want to take it to the board, you would have to take initiative, work with the staff here to figure out how to do that, to get this to the full board for hearing, where you can make your case, and then the full commission would vote on whether to decertify you or let you continue to act as a police officer. And there's a possibility at that hearing that there could be some other kind of proposed solution to this problem, a suspension or something of that sort. So I just want you to understand what's happening. And with that, I will make a new motion to decertify.
Commissioner Rice, say it.
Wait, you're making the motion to decertify now.
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
One opposition.
Okay, motion passes. So please stay in contact with the staff to see what your next step should be to get your appeal in and get this before the board. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, let's take up the cases of Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Is Shelby County here? Let's just take these in order so we don't get too confused with the figures here. Let's take the case of Brian Owen Beck.
Okay, I'm Chief Inspector Carla Allen, that's C-A-R-L-A, Allen, A-L-L-E-N. In regards to Brian Beck, we opened up a case on him based upon allegations involving misconduct. He was arrested by the Germantown PD Department for 2 charges of rape and 2 charges of sexual battery. Mr. Beck was indicted by the Shelby County Grand Jury. He had an administrative hearing with the Shelby County Sheriff's Office, and that hearing was held on August the 21st, 2018. And we upheld the charges of personal conduct and adherence to law. He met the Civil Service Merit Board on 10/8/19, and they upheld the verdict that the Sheriff's Office did have cause to terminate. And on 2/20/23, he pled guilty to 2 lesser charges of aggravated assault. So we're asking for the decertification in regards to Brian Beck.
What was the sentence in that case? Has he been sentenced?
Yes, but I'm not certain how much time. I think it was probation. He was given, I think, 4 years of probation, 4 years suspended, something to that effect. Not really certain. I don't have the disposition.
Okay. Has Mr. Beck been served properly? He was served. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Wright, I'll make a default motion for decertification, your termination, formal policy.
So here a second.
Second is
All in favor? Okay, let's take up the next one for Shelby County. Joseph Tecumseh Jones. Is Mr. Jones here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. If you would please go ahead.
Okay, in regards to Mr. Joseph Jones, the Shelby County Sheriff's Office opened up a case on him on 3/2/2018. Based upon the allegations of unsatisfactory performance. He was involved in there was a high pursuit. We opened up this investigation when he pursued a vehicle. There was a high-speed chase of an unknown vehicle, and he caused an accident. The suspect that he was chasing hit a citizen in another vehicle, causing that car, the suspect that he was chasing, to hit a citizen of Shelby County. There was damages done to the car. This car collided with Miss Lyles, I believe that's her name. Mr. Jones he was going 82 miles per hour in a 30-mile zone in a residential area. Once he caused that suspect car to hit that citizen, he turned off all his emergency equipment, turned off his body camera. He went and approached the victim. Once he approached her, she sustained some injuries. The car had a lot of damages to it. He failed to make contact with our dispatcher. He failed to call for emergency backup for her. He failed to report this incident immediately. It took him approximately 25 minutes to notify his supervisor. And then at some point, the dispatch was notified. Based upon the incident that occurred that night, he was charged with compliance with regulation, with his authorized emergency vehicle, a pursuit policy, a violation of unsatisfactory performance, personal conduct, truthfulness, and elective duty. During this investigation, when we opened up the case against Mr. Jones, he did admit to a lot of things that he did that night. And based upon the charges that we have, we charged him with compliance with regulation because he failed to follow the policy and procedures of the sheriff's office. The authorized emergency vehicle, he had on his emergency vehicle, he turned off his body camera, and he was involved in a pursuit, and he failed to report that pursuit as well. That's the violation of the pursuit policy. In regards to the MVR, once he engaged the victim, he turned the body camera off, and a lot of the conversations that they had was not recorded. He also, when he did this initial report, he wrote things in his report that was not given by the victim of this car, of the driver of this car. He put things in report that was not truthful, so we charged him with that unsatisfactory performance, and also for personal conduct once he did the field interview with her, he went outside of the scope of asking her questions, and most of them dealing with her personal life. The truth in his charge, after we looked at the body cam and the footage, he lied in the statements and the reports that he did. The reports that he wrote, he was not truthful with that. During the time of his interview, he changed the story several times, and he changed the story. And of course, falsified the report. And the elected duty was he failed to communicate with his supervisor. He failed to notify the communication in regards to this incident that occurred, and failed to get medical attention for the victim. After we had the administrative hearing on him, all the charges were sustained. He went before the Civil Service Merit Board on 6/14/2018, and they found that the Shelby County Sheriff's Office met the burden of proof, and there was cause for his termination.
Just a couple of questions. As far as, well, first of all, this officer, how long was he with the sheriff's office?
He was hired 6/1/2016.
Is this his first position in law enforcement, or did he come from another agency?
I don't have that information.
Okay. Was there any other kind of disciplinary action in his time with the sheriff's office?
There was one other, I think, discussion and counseling in regards to, he had one other incident to where he did not properly activate. I think there was one other incident he had for discussion and counseling where he did not report that he activated his blue lights and siren.
Yeah, any questions?
Commissioner Wright, I just have one, was the department able to determine the motive behind turning off the camera, calling in the pursuit, things like that?
No, sir. Like I say, the information that we have after we looked at this body cam, we got it from the victim coming in. And she said that, you know, other things that happened out there on the scene that night. That led us to look further into his body camera, into the car footage in regards to the video recording. The information that he gave the supervisor that night was not in line with what was on the body camera. So once we went back to the car cam, we looked at that and noticed that he did cause this collision when he chased his vehicle in this residential area. It all started out from a suspect car with a broken tail light. And so he went into this residential area going 82 miles per hour in a 30-mile-per-mile zone.
Okay, thank you. What time of day did this incident happen?
This happened at, I think it was midnight on '23. It was shortly after midnight, but I'm looking for the exact time.
Okay, but it was late at night.
Yes, yes, sir. And it was actually raining that particular night because the streets were wet.
Any other questions from the commission?
I have questions. Commissioner Wagner, you said that the information started from the victim of the traffic accident.
Well, he called 30 minutes later after the accident happened. He called his supervisor 30 minutes later. The information that he provided to the supervisor was one set of information. Once the video camera footage was reviewed the following day, we noticed that there was other information that happened before the initial traffic stop or the chasing of this vehicle through the neighborhood.
I guess my question was, you made the statement that the information came from the victim of the traffic accident.
Yes, okay.
What was that information?
The information that we received that night from Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones told his supervisor what had taken place. The supervisor took it for what it was worth. The following day, the victim came forward and she started sharing some information with the sheriff's office in regards to what had taken place that night.
I guess what I'm asking is, what was that information?
The information is that she had concerns about the field interview he conducted with her.
Okay.
And it was a lot of
personal contact.
Yes.
Okay, I understand.
Sorry about that.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Let's get the Jones up here, your side of the story, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Could you please identify yourself for the record also?
Yes, sir. My name is Joseph Jones.
Go ahead and give us your side of the story.
Yes. Regarding the incident at night. If I may, could I provide a little, like, I guess, background leading up to the incident? I guess providing a little psychology as far as why the decisions I made that night. It's a little off subject, but I think it needs to be heard.
Okay,
if I may.
Yeah.
See. at the time of the incident. I hadn't been on it long. I was still what I would consider a rookie. Assuming that y'all had been through an academy at one time in your life. I was one of the ones that had a rough time. The academy was very rough for me. It's my opinion that somebody wanted me to quit. So I felt like I had something to prove. I made it through the academy. I didn't give up. You know, there's a FTO process you have to go through. It wasn't as bad, but it was a little rough also. So with that being said, I had a chip on my shoulder. I felt like I had something to prove. So when I was cut loose, I went out there to be the best cop I can be. I was a go-getter. I was hands-on. I wanted to work. I enjoyed being a law enforcement officer. That's why I'm here today. I still, after 5 years after my termination, I still have a burning desire to be in law enforcement, to protect and serve. Regarding the incident, I don't think this was intentional. She mentioned that I had a body cam. I wasn't equipped with a body cam in 2018, but I don't think Patrol had body cams. I think she meant my MVR. Long story short, I pursued a vehicle that I refused to stop after I made an attempted traffic stop. I believe it was mentioned my contact with Ms. Lyles. She mentioned a concern regarding my contact with her. I think I asked about, she looked familiar. And after my own research, she attended the same high school. I didn't know at the time, after the fact, I realized we went to the same high school. I asked her, was she in a sport? That was the only thing I asked. That was, I guess, not within, law enforcement capacity of questions. I took too long to call everything in because I took my time trying to, assess things and figure things out. Honestly, I was scared. I knew I was in trouble. Prior to the incident, I can't remember exactly, but I know I had a decision overturned. I was being disciplined for an infraction, and originally it was a written reprimand, and then it was upgraded to, after I spoke with my supervisors about it, they decided to upgrade it to a 3-day suspension. This was after I had signed for the other disciplinary action. And long story short, it got overturned, and I felt like my superiors didn't like that. So from the beginning of my law enforcement career up into the incident, I felt like I had a target on my back. And I did my best to overcome that. I wanted to show everyone that I am a good cop. This was a long time ago. Everything's blurry. The only thing that everything that she mentioned, I don't have much to dispute. The thing what got me out the door was truthfulness, and I maintained that I wasn't untruthful. I did not tell a lie. I think one of the things, let me see, there was a pursuit report. I think there was the document, I think that was listed as me falsifying. I've never done this before. I didn't know I was supposed to, I didn't think to review certain things. I didn't think I had to, but I think I filled out a pursuit report, and it was based on what I knew at the time. I got into a pursuit. The pursuit lasted for, 2.5 minutes. Ultimately, the vehicle that I was going after rear-ended another vehicle and kept going. I saw the vehicle in the median, and so I discontinued pursuing the vehicle. It was dark. I think he ended up going into oncoming traffic and continuing away from me. I stopped after I saw the vehicle and in the median, and I checked on the individual. And I mean, I was shook. I didn't know what to do at the time. Like I said, I was scared. I'm here today because I understand that if I'm decertified, I can't practice law enforcement in Tennessee at all, period. And that's why I'm here, because like I said, I still have a burning desire to continue a career in law enforcement. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from Commissioner Wright? Commissioner Jones, I asked the department, and maybe you can give some insight too. Was there any motive behind this? What you didn't know the person that you was pursuing? There was not any history between you and that person that you know of before. I'm trying to wrap my mind on why he wasn't calling in the pursuit, getting other officers there even after the accident, calling dispatch saying how brief it was. He was involved in the pursuit, vehicle in the meeting or with them, description of the vehicle that you were pursuing. Seemed like there should have been some kind of motive or something there.
You understand the question. This was my second pursuit. And so that might have played into how I handled things this time. My first pursuit was pretty straightforward. Nothing really the question. This pursuit, let's see, it was at nighttime. Initiated a traffic stop because the vehicle had an inoperable tail light, and he fled. It happened really fast. My sirens were on. No, my sirens were not on. My lights were on. I initiated the traffic stop, and that was it. I followed in his direction to travel, and of course he was speeding away, so I had to keep up with him. I think there was at one point where I was going 82 miles per hour. It was a long stretch, and I got up to the speed to catch up with the guy. It was yes, it was residential. It was an open way. It was nighttime. It was clear, and I had to catch up with him. So I hit it. I floored it to catch up with him. That's why I was going that fast at that time. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I've still got a few more along these lines. How much damage was done to the victim's car that got hit and put into the median?
She was rear-ended. If I'm not mistaken, I believe she ended up driving over I think it was total. She was rear-ended, so the hotel was just smashed in, and I think her vehicle was on top of a fire hydrant.
So was there a crash report? How did all that?
I did the crash report. I did the crash report as if I would do any other crash report.
As you've heard, truthfulness is a pretty big thing before this commission.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt on all that I can for sure. Was there untruthfulness in the crash report?
No. I'm trying to remember how they came with the investigation. So I did the accident report just like I would do any other accident report. What I left out was, as far as the accident report, what I left out as far as the events regarding me and that person, leading up to the victim and her incident. Other than that, I mean, I wrote the report just like I would do any other crash report. If I get called to an area, do a crash report, that's how I wrote it up. That's all I knew. I think that's part of how truthfulness came up, because I'm not sure. I guess they mentioned I omitted intentionally, and there wasn't it. I think I maintained that at the time prior to me being investigated, that the incidents weren't related. After they pulled me in to be investigated, they showed on my NVR the camera. They blew it up, and it was clear that my incident was definitely ready. The vehicle that I was going after hit that vehicle and kept going. But when I gave I think I was asked to give a memo, and and I documented, what I did. I documented what I saw. I think I maintained that I didn't know that this incident had to do with this incident. I stopped at the time because I saw a vehicle in the media. Did I have any idea that it might have been related? Yeah, I thought, I considered it and I was scared. Like I said, I felt like I had a target on my back and I was scared. Am I a bad cop? I'm not. At the time, I was a rookie, had a burning desire to be in law enforcement, to really make a difference. And I think now, where I am now, if you decertify me, I won't have an option. I can't sue law enforcement in Tennessee. If you were not decertified, I can continue. And what Tennessee or Shelby County would get is a person who still has a burning desire to be in law enforcement, to uphold the law and help, but also somebody who has a little bit more experience, somebody that's more mature, has learned from his mistakes and can probably help somebody else. A calm mind makes wiser decisions. At the time everything was going on, I was young, I felt like a target on my back, and I made poor decisions. If I knew what I knew now, hindsight is 20/20, I'd be still on working right now.
Commissioner Wright, just a little bit for discussion. I may have some questions as well, but it seems like there's a lot more that we may need to look at as far as the reports and things of that nature to compare actually what happened compared to what's been said happened. I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to move to full commission.
Commissioner Isabel, second.
Okay, we've got a motion to forward this to the full commission. Any discussion? Got what we've already had. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, ayes have it. All right, what we'll do is this will go forward to the full commission so we can present everything to them and make a determination of what should happen. You'll have an opportunity to call witnesses, to present evidence, cross-examine the witnesses from the agency, and you'll be notified when that all comes together.
Do I have any limitations?
As far as who you want to call as a witness and that sort of thing. No, as long as they have something they can contribute to the case. If you want to bring witnesses that can attest to your character, your truthfulness, your hard work, or people that you know from the agency or outside the agency, you can bring who you like. Okay. You'll be contacted with the dates of whatever proceedings come up and what your rights are at that point.
Thank you.
Let's take up University of Memphis Public Safety and the case of Marcus Mayo Nolan. Could you identify yourself and those agency's position on this?
Derek Myers, Chief of Police, University of Memphis. So Mr. Nolan was let go during his probationary period for unsatisfactory attendance. He had gone into leave without pay status, about 5 payrolls in a row. And during that time, his supervisor also happened to notice some unusual activity and examined some of our video cameras and got him on video stealing food products out of a food kiosk where he actually opened the security gate and opened the rolling guard on the food refrigeration unit and removed food from it. So that was added to his termination letter.
Any questions? Oh, he's not. Is he not here? I thought he was.
That was gonna be my question.
He was supposed to appear last month and he had a death in the family and asked to be continued to this month. So he knew he was properly notified and.
I will make a default motion for decertification due to termination for violation of departmental policies and procedures.
I'll say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Sorry you had to come back again.
Oh, it's okay.
All right. Let's take up the cases with the Tennessee Department of Safety. We have a representative from the Department of Safety.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Which case do you have, sir?
So we'll just take these in order. Start with Nicholas Shannon Collins.
May I first, Kevin Creed, post investigator. One of the people with the Department of Safety is Dakota Jacobs. He approached me in the hallway and wishes to surrender his post certification before we begin with the HP. If that's something you'll consider, he'll come up and make the announcement. That's something you'll consider.
Okay.
Dakota Jacobs.
Tennessee Department of Safety.
Okay, if you could please identify yourself for the commission and see we're at the case of Nicholas Shannon Collins. Let's take that up first.
My name is Justin Roll. I'm a Sergeant Tennessee Highway Patrol. On January 17th of 2022, Nicholas's wife told him that she was wanting a divorce. She moved out and moved in with her mom and her stepfather. On February 17th, Ms. Collins took out an order of protection against Nicholas after her mother received some text message regarding some threats. Also on that same day, there was some property at their house that had been vandalized, which include a valve stem on her stepfather's vehicle. Some motion sensors were knocked down on the driveway, and they painted. There was some security cameras that had been painted over. The lenses were painted over. So on February 18th, he was served with the order of protection. The department immediately put him on discretionary leave pending an internal investigation. On the 20th, Ms. Collins woke up at the residence she was staying at after she heard some alarm sensors going off at the parents' residence. She got up to go look at the camera footage and realized that it was inoperative at the time. So she went outside and she witnessed Mr. Collins in the driveway. They assessed the damage to the property. At that time, there was some external security cameras that had some wires to it that were cut. Valve stems were cut on 2 different vehicles, and her mother's license plate was removed from her vehicle. Once Nicholas left the residence, he went to a Benjamin Wade's residence, which was a friend of his wife. There, he painted the right side of Mr. Wade's vehicle with a blue can of spray paint. There's also footage of this incident where he goes up there. He's got cameras outside of his house. I'll show that. Shortly thereafter, Mr. Collins was arrested by the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department for violating the order of protection and vandalism over $1,000. Mr. Collins was taken into custody of deputies, located a Smith & Wesson pistol in his possession with an extra magazine. On the 24th, Mr. Collins was released from the Sullivan County Jail with conditions of the bond. He would no longer contact Ms. Collins. Later that evening, Mr. Collins contacted his wife. She did not answer. She contacted the Sheriff's Department. The following day, Mr. Collins was arrested for violating that order of protection. Since I followed back up, I got a little ahead of myself, sorry. So ultimately, the department conducted an internal investigation around the matter. He was terminated. He did not appeal it. Did not go through a formal hearing. This week, I followed up to see the disposition of the cases, and it looks like they are still pending with some other non-related charges that are not related to this incident, but he's still in custody at the Sullivan County jail.
Has he been served?
Yes.
Did we have to kind of responsibility?
What's the address on that?
It's a Keystone Drive address, Morristown.
Did you say he was in custody
Yes.
now?
I can speak further on that. Kevin Green, Post Commission. The person who signed for the green card has power of attorney over him. They signed the green card. They contacted me a few days ago. I believe the name is Ben Collins. They said he is still in custody and that he was going to inform his attorney of this meeting today. But it's different charges related from that incident.
And I don't believe we ever heard from the attorney. Is that
We have
correct?
not. There's been no communication since that initial contact.
Commissioner Wright, I'll make a default motion for decertification due to termination violations of departmental policies and procedures.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to decertify as a default. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, it'll be decertified. So you've got, yep. Let's take those up then. Department of Safety, you still here? Yes. Okay, let's take up the case of Samuel Outlaw.
Sergeant Toby Carter, Tennessee Department of Safety. On May 22nd, 2022, Mr. Outlaw was operating his 2021 Can-Am Maverick side-by-side, Columbia, Tennessee. He had a passenger with him, which was his girlfriend at the time, that's Jessica White. They were driving to refuel the Can-Am. On the way back, Mr. Outlaw overcorrected, causing him to travel into oncoming traffic and struck a vehicle head on. During the investigation of the crash, Mr. Outlaw's blood alcohol was taken at the scene and at the hospital. At the scene, it came back at 0.165, at the hospital 0.136. Since then, he was charged with DUI vehicle assault. On July the 7th of this year, he entered a guilty plea for DUI, got 1129 probation, had to spend 5 days in the treatment facility, and the vehicle assault charges were dismissed.
Is Mr. Outlaw then?
He signed for the green card, correct?
I'll make the motion for this decertify.
Motion to certify for default.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second? Second. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. We will decertify Mr. Outlaw. The last thing we have for Department of Safety is Ronnie Justice Swafford.
Sergeant Harold Stewart, Department of Safety. On January 18th, 2022, our office became aware of allegations against Mr. Ronnie Swafford, who was a trooper at the time. The allegations was he was going over to a married woman's house and having sexual intercourse while on duty. There was a witness to the allegations in terms of he would show up at her house while on duty in his patrol car in uniform and stay for a while. Her room was directly above I believe it was directly below the room of the complainant, and she could hear the moaning above them. Mr. Swafford went on sick leave the day after he was notified of this investigation. and stayed on sick leave until he tendered his resignation on March 5th, 2022. It went through the recommendation process, and the recommendation would have been termination for these allegations.
Mr. Swafford been served. He was notified properly. Okay.
Motion for default decertification, resignation in lieu of termination for violation of departmental policies and procedures.
So I have a second.
Second is
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need to take up the surrender as a motion?
Yeah, Jacob, Jacob, the code.
Is he still here?
Yes.
All right. Would you please go forward? Identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is Dakota Jacob.
Jacob, your case has been brought to us with a recommendation for decertification. I understand you want to surrender your certification.
Yes, sir. I don't ever plan to be employed by any law enforcement agency. So I'm gonna surrender.
Any questions?
If you will vote to accept it.
Motion to accept the surrender.
Good. All right. Is there a second?
second is
Any discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Okay, we voted to accept your surrender. Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Jacob, I'll prepare an acceptance of the surrender, and I assume that the address that the post staff has in file is correct.
No address. I have a new address. I moved. I bought my first home.
Okay, can you provide that address and I'll send that information to you?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's take up the Knoxville Police Department case of Joseph Charles Roberts. Sorry to keep you waiting all afternoon. I know you've got to drive to get back.
That's all right, sir. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Mike Dabble. I'm a sergeant with the Knoxville Police Department Office of Professional Standards. This is a clear-cut case of integrity. An officer of ours conducted an unauthorized pursuit, which resulted in a pretty substantial crash. Following that crash, he lied to his supervisor and then subsequently lied on approximately 15 warrants that we discovered. He is now a convicted felon, having pled guilty to one count of tampering with government documents.
Is he currently incarcerated or on probation? Or what's his,
He is not in custody, sir. I don't believe he ever spent any time actually physically incarcerated. I believe he is eligible for that to be expunged within about 2 years from the plea, but I am not, that is not gospel, sir. I'm not convinced of that.
That's the notes that I have here. He was put on 2 years probation with diversion starting on July 9th of 2022.
all right. He was properly served.
He was.
Commissioner Wright, motion for default due to termination for violations of departmental policies and procedures.
I think it was resignation.
Resignation in lieu of termination, correct? Sorry.
Do I have a second?
Second, Commissioner.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll have to recuse myself.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's go back and take up the Memphis Police Department cases. Now, if you could, please. Starting with Armando Bustamante.
Good afternoon. Jimmy Thomas, Senior Legal Advisor, Memphis Police Department. Mr. Bustamante resigned from the Memphis Police Department on August 4th, 2021. There were two instances in which brought about that resignation. On July 13th of 2019, Mr. Bustamante responded to a disturbance call between a man and a woman. As he arrived on scene, he approached them and threw the man to the ground and then kicked the man in the face and handcuffed him. The woman then told Officer Bustamante that she had been attacked by someone else and this man was offering assistance to her. Mr. Bustamante apologized for the actions, offered medical attention, and released them. On January 16th, 2021,
Officer Bustamante took part in a pursuit of a stolen vehicle. The suspect fled from the vehicle on foot when Officer Bustamante located one of the suspects in the storage shed. He struck him in the head and facial area with his pistol and punched him in the face 3 times after he had been handcuffed. After Officer Bustamante resigned, he was indicted in the Western District of Tennessee, and according to the DOJ press release, entered a guilty plea on or about February 14th, 2023, to a felony count of deprivation of the right under color of law.
Do you know, is he in custody of prison?
The information I had that he was set for sentencing on June 15th, but I cannot find any information beyond that. I don't know whether that sentencing before was continued.
He was served and he indicated he was not going to appear today.
Commissioner Wright, default motion for decertification due to resignation in lieu of termination for violation of the departmental policies and procedures.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second for decertification. All in favor? Aye. Let's move on to the next one. Patrick Jamil Ferguson, Memphis Police Department.
Officer Ferguson, on January 5th, 2021, investigation showed a Tillman Station roll call. He left the station, went to his residence of a male located at 3500 block of Park 20, forced that male into the back seat of his patrol car, drove him to an area on Fraser Boulevard and Denver Street, and then shot him in the back seat of his car, killing him. He then drove to another location in which he placed the body to dispose of it at a later time. He is currently under indictment, I believe, for first-degree murder out of the Shelby County 30th Judicial District, and is currently out on bond.
And he's currently out on bond.
He is currently out on bond.
Has he been properly served?
He was served and notified, but he could not appear because he was restricted by a GPS monitor to the city of Memphis.
Is he represented by counsel? Did he say? I'm sure he is.
I'm sure he is.
All right, default motion, Commissioner Wright, for decertification due to resignation and lieu of termination for violation of departmental policies and procedures and a whole list of others.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Let's move on to the next one. Melanie Nicole Liggins.
Melanie Liggins was a P2 probationary officer, and she was terminated on August 3rd of 2021. She was terminated for excessive abuse of the sick policy. In a 12-month period, she had more than 12 absences. Numerous counts where she didn't show up for duty, and I believe one other count where she did not inform the officer she was coming in. An administrative hearing date was set. She did not report for the hearing as requested. She was on extended probation for sick abuse policy at the time of the hearing. She refused service at the administrative summons on July 28th, 2021. And did not cooperate in the investigation.
She basically just kind of disappeared.
Phoned it in, for lack of a better.
Commissioner Wright, I have a question. On August the 4th of 21, on the hearing summary form, she marked that she would appear for the appeal, and I assume she did not.
The information I have is from a memo on August 5th and on August 3rd, she was terminated. And the date was set for her to appear at 8 a.m. and she did not appear.
Looks like she signed this on the 4th.
And she's chosen not to appear today.
Do we have service on her?
She was served properly.
This is one that I would question whether this rose to the level of decertification, but if she was served properly and not here, we give her 30 days notice. If she wants to appeal it, I would make a motion for default, due to terminations of violations of departmental policies and procedures.
Visible second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
She will be decertified for default. Larry Matthews, Memphis Police Department.
Mr. Matthews resigned from the Memphis Police Department on May 6, 2022. Charges are stemming from December 25th, 2021. Probationary officer Larry Matthews was involved in a loud domestic disturbance with his wife. His actions were reported to police and he was eventually arrested. His arrest was widely publicized in the media outlets. Officer Matthews was listed as a suspect in a simple BB assault report involving his wife. His wife reported that he held her against the grill, grabbed her and pushed her down. An arrest warrant was issued by Shelby County, charging him with false imprisonment and domestic violence, where he was booked into the county jail. His wife also reported details that Mr. Matthews had been punching her repeatedly early in the day. Mr. Matthews left the scene of the incident. He did not immediately report the action to his department. He denied there was an argument between him and his wife. The first incident occurred in Mississippi and denied being in a video. Denied the allegation, but there was a video his wife provided of the incident, disproving his denial. He submitted his resignation letter prior to being served with the hearing summons. He was charged with personal conduct, domestic violence, reporting improper conduct, and truth.
It was Mr. Matthews properly served.
Yes. And he indicated he was going to be present. So, but he's not here.
Commissioner Wright, I have a question for permanent, not that it matters. Did she press charges on him? Was he criminally charged in this matter?
He was.
Do we know about any of the outcome of that?
Those charges were ultimately no problem.
And since I'm on the road, I got it wrote down over here so I don't mess it up. Default motion for decertification due to resignation in lieu of termination for violations of departmental policy.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for decertification. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It will be decertified. Next one, Annabelle Ordonez.
Officer Ordonez resigned from the Memphis Police Department on February 28th of 2021, stemming from an incident that occurred on September 18th, 2020 at 11:30 p.m. in South Haven, Mississippi, where officers were called to a bar at 560 Gitwell Road, the 10th inning bar. A male subject reported that he was assaulted by his wife's ex-boyfriend, who was identified as Mr. Ordonez. Alex Nick was his nickname. Officers confronted Ordonez as he left out of the rear door. As they arrived, the bartender ordered the police that he was looking for him. He was wearing police duty pants, underbelt, police boots, and identified himself as an MPD officer. There was a witness to the assault, which ended in the men's restroom. Ordonez was also accused of making vulgar threats and to sexually assault the victim's 17-year-old son. Alcohol was a factor. Ordonez's immediate supervisor was notified by the South Haven Police Department that night and told that Ordonez was possibly a suspect. A warrant was issued the next day. On September 24th, he was arrested and released on his own recognizance. An internal investigation was initiated for his personal conduct, and his conduct was sustained. December 16th, 2020, he pled guilty to simple assault in South Haven Municipal Court and was placed him in violation of departmental rule of adherence to law. He resigned prior to the administrative hearing that was to be held by a deputy chief. An order of non-adjudication was entered for dismissal of guilty under certain conditions to be awarded for 6 months. He was basically placed on Mississippi diversion. The initial investigation was concluded on November 19, 2020, and was added after his guilty plea. I don't know whether he successfully completed diversion or not.
Was Mr. O'Donnell served the property?
She indicated to staff that she would not be appearing today.
In the, Commissioner Wright, in the resignation letter, it was kind of interesting. It took a position at another place of employment, almost like they took another law enforcement position. Not saying that or trying to read too much into it, but those kind of things.
Yeah, we checked yesterday. She's not employed with any other agencies.
In the state of Tennessee.
In the state of Tennessee.
This is Mr. It's supposed to be Miss.
Sorry?
This says Mr. It's supposed to be Miss.
Yeah, I'm just kind of confused in that too, because the name is
Yeah, I believe it should be a female.
whether it's a male or a female, I guess it's, does it matter? Or could it be somebody who wants to be something other than their or whatever. Okay, do I have a motion? Commissioner Wright, make a default motion decertification due to resignation and legal termination for violations of departmental policies.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Officer Liggins will be decertified. Let's take the last one for Memphis Police Department. James David Sewell. And Mr. Sewell, is he presently not head of my office?
Well, there's also Mr. Roby.
Yeah, you got a Roby in there.
All right, well, let's take Roby first, since that's on the comes at first on the agenda.
Mr. Roby resigned from the Memphis Police Department on March 2nd of 2021. He was charged with departmental regulations 104 personal conduct and relating truthfulness. On January 5th of 2021, Internal Affairs received a YouTube video entitled "Shooting at Memphis Car Meet and Hellcat Burnout." A high-ranking officer saw the video and identified Roby in his personal vehicle in the video at several locations in the city while off duty. And at the time, he was a police recruit. The Internal Affairs investigation revealed the video occurred while Roby was off duty and police recruit on May 5th of 2020. He was hired February 15th of 2020, graduated Academy Honor about July 24th of 2020. This incident was discovered after he had graduated the academy, but still a probationary officer. At 3 different locations on that evening, he acted as a spectator or witness to reckless driving, reckless endangerment, property vandalism, and employment of a weapon. His conduct was also deemed unethical. The vehicle he was driving was part of a radio broadcast about a drag racing on a second location on the video.
And at the third location, multiple citizens called police to report a large presence of loud vehicles driving recklessly on private property. The event ended with a fight and a shooting. There was at least one injured party. Roby witnessed the acts. He said he called the police, but there was no record that he'd ever called the police. Roby did have knowledge of the video and also the identity of the person who reported the video as a relative. He took no further action to report his actions to the training academy when the actual incident occurred, or to a supervisor after he saw the video posted on YouTube. The internal affairs investigation concluded on January 25th, 2021. He had resigned on the day of his administrative hearing before the scheduled time.
Mr. Roby properly served.
Mr. Roby was properly notified, called us 2 days ago to state that he couldn't come today because of a work conflict. And I will point out that he is currently working as a certified officer in Mississippi.
Okay. All right, motion. Did you have something?
Yes, sir. Kevin Craig, I spoke with him and he was made aware that if he wasn't present today, he will be default decertified. And he said if that happens, he will appeal the 30 days if that's something he needs to do.
Fair enough, Commissioner Wright. Default motion for decertification due to resignation or termination for violation of departmental policies and procedures.
Isn't second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Duly certified. And the last one from the Memphis Police Department, James David Sewell.
I'm Lieutenant Monique Liggins with MPD Internal Affairs. Internal Affairs was made aware through an anonymous complaint received through our email line that it alleged that Lieutenant J.D. Sewell was displaying bottles of wine as if it was candy in his office at the police station. He was selling the wine to police officers and other people for $10 a bottle is what the complaint initially listed. It was addressed on April 18, 2022, when Internal Affairs immediately opened an investigation for alcoholic beverages violation. In the complaint, it said that the behavior of Lieutenant Sewell was going on for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And the complainant stressed that the concern that the lieutenant's actions was displayed that he did not have a license to sell alcohol. And there were several photographs that were attached to the email displaying at least 9 bottles of wine, around 750 milliliter standard bottle wine bottles that were labeled on top of a file cabinet that particularly matched up with a office assigned to supervisors. Although that complainant didn't come forward and we could not identify who sent the anonymous complaint, Internal Affairs was able to recover video surveillance at the station. And in one particular day, on the day that we received the anonymous complaint, we had footage where Lieutenant Sewell in uniform escorted 2 ladies that were identified as citizens. They were not in police uniform. They were escorted to his office. Upon entering his office, one of the females had an empty bag, and then within 5 or 6 minutes, was leaving them at least 1 bottle, perhaps 2 in that same bag as she was toting in her arm. The internal investigation was concluded, and the sustained administrative violations were for alcoholic beverages and soliciting business on departmental property. The hearing officer concluded that not only was Lieutenant Sewell in violation of policy, but he was in violation of several state laws. When the internal investigation was launched, we did approach and send a request to the Alcohol Beverage Commission and they determined that they were not going to pursue the complaint if the lieutenant discontinued his behavior. We found out through the investigation that the wine was homemade. Sewell admitted that this was wine that was made by his father-in-law. He did admit that he was accepting donations of $10 from officers, and he used those bottles, wine bottles, as a reward, particularly allowing them to leave the precincts with wine bottles. When we knew that he had no authorization by appropriate authority to have the possess or sell wine while on departmental property. Lieutenant Sewell submitted a handwritten retirement letter prior to the official ruling that would have resulted in termination.
I just got a couple questions, if I may. How long has Lieutenant Sewell been in the department?
40 years.
I'm sorry, how many?
40.
40 years.
40. He was, commission date was May 23rd, 1982.
Okay. What position was he filling at the time that this all happened?
He was the uniform patrol supervisor for the uniform patrol Tillman Station. At the time, we had a Delta shift, hours of 5 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Was it ever determined who the person, anonymous person was who made this tip, I guess you could call it?
No, the internal affairs, we were not able to. We knew that by the photos that were submitted, it was in-house. For you to access the supervisor's office, you would have to have been a police officer.
In the course of your investigation, was it pretty common knowledge at the station that this was happening?
So it was knowledge to him and to the officers, but particularly in Sewell's position, he would ensure that he would transport the wine bottles, put them on display, but he wouldn't leave them on display so the commanders would not be aware that he had wine bottles or bottles of wine in the office.
I have a question. What was his record like for those 40 years?
He had some departmental violations, but none had risen to this level.
So he basically
alcoholic beverages.
So he basically had been free of any serious violations, what you're saying, other than this point. Okay.
Questions?
Do we have the record of him doing polling work this time?
He's here.
He's here.
But I don't think he's working anywhere else.
We'll have him come up and ask you. But any more
I didn't have him down this here.
Okay, yeah, he just shows that he retired from Memphis last fall.
Let's have Lieutenant Sewell come up and tell us his side of the story here. Please identify yourself for the record.
My name is James Sewell, formerly known Lieutenant J.D. Sewell, worldwide by J.D. Tell you a little bit about myself. My first 25 years, I was patrolman in uniform patrol because I loved it. My wife kept asking when I was going to get promoted. And I said, when I can't catch them anymore, then I'll get promoted. But I was always fast and on foot and caught them. And finally, after 25 years, I told my wife, well, I guess I need to go and start getting promoted to get ready for retirement. So I became a sergeant, worked in domestic violence and in homicide. And then while I was in homicide, I was promoted to a lieutenant. And lieutenant, our first assignment was uniform patrol downtown precinct. And then second assignment, uniform patrol 2. And I was proud of my officers because they were #1 in the entire city of Memphis as far as productivity in the precinct stat program. And I pushed him hard in the areas of arrest, moving violations, parking tickets, self-initiation. And my goal was to be #1 in the city, which I kept bragging to my colonel about that we were in all of our staff meetings. And then, but I also wanted my officers to enjoy coming to work, like I always have, to look forward to coming to work. So I encourage their hard work and productivity by not only giving positive paperwork, like I did with them at good felony arrests, but I helped to create a little healthy competition in their productivity for the misdemeanor arrests, the tickets and the calls. And I would go every month. I took out the extra mile, and I determined who was first place, second place, and third place in the misdemeanor arrests, the movie tickets, parking tickets, and calls. And at the common roll call, which is the roll call where everybody's present, then I would announce the winners, if it was first place in this category, second place, and in fact, it got to a point where I would have them guess who was going to be, and they enjoyed it and liked it, and that was, it made their productivity go up because they wanted to see if they could be #1 next time. To further reward my officers, I started buying candy at Costco and put a candy jar out. So at the end of the night, when they came in, turning their paperwork, they could get some candy, go home. After about a year, they were complaining that I must have had something to do with the dentist because they're trying to get them dental decay. So I started buying peanut butter crackers and stuff like that, non-sweet stuff. And again, encouraging them and rewarding them for their hard work and making me look good for their high productivity. After a couple of years, my wife suggested I give her dad's wine to my officers as a further reward. She would buy the wine from her dad, and then I would give it away to the officers, just like the candy itself as a gift. And my desk was at the back. Now the candy, it still costs a little bit at Costco, and I thought it was worth it. And some of the guys would pitch in a little money in the candy jar, or just buy a bag of candy, put it in the candy jar. And I told them at the get-go that the wine wasn't so cheap as candy, and so it wouldn't probably last that long. And then they asked how much, and I said, my wife gives her dad $10. And so a lot of the officers to keep the bill, they liked it, especially on a Friday, but they would take it and go home. And so they would reimburse me or Venmo my wife $10. But not everybody did it, which was fine because it was just a gift. And my desk was in the very back, and the bottles were at the door where they turned in the paperwork, so they could grab it, go grab it, give me $10 or whatever. This was not as the deputy chief kept saying, I was making money, making this profit. I said, no, it was never intended to be that. It was just give rewards. It was just a matter of how much I lose. Some guys reimbursed me, some guys didn't. So, in fact, we have a system in the Memphis Police Department. It's called the Performance Enhancement Program. It's an alert that came up. In fact, I was in on the development of that. Came up with the name of the thing to make it sound positive. But officers do have problems. Too many crashes, absenteeism, that type stuff. This program is set up so it will alert a supervisor that thinks if it is a parameter, thinks an officer is something might be wrong, so we can intervene and try to help that officer to so it won't come to this type thing. And of course, I got my anonymous complaint to internal affairs, it alerted my supervisor to look at for me, and so my supervisor filled out the performance advancement program action plan. And my major wrote that the alert triggered by one instance involving alcohol. Inspectional Services received an anonymous complaint alleging Lieutenant J.D. Sewell is selling bottles of wine out of his shift office. This incident is being handled administratively as one incident. No pattern of job-related performance issues or negative behavior was identified. The employee will not be placed in the program. And then a month before my administrative hearing, my colonel precinct wanted me recommended that I attend the FBI Academy. He wrote this letter of recommendation a month before my hearing. Lieutenant Sewell supervises the Tillman Charlie shift and is well respected by the officers of his shift. His strengths are his personality and his professionalism. Lieutenant Sewell is a dedicated problem solver. He gives his all to any task assigned to him. His work ethic is as strong as his skills and abilities. Lieutenant Sewell has the uncanny ability to make everyone seem important and put people at ease when he is handling their problems or concerns. He is a team player and he is willing to assist the other supervisors with their duties. He takes charge, and when he realizes something needs to be done, he does it, whether it's his job or not. He is fair. He is very respectful to the other supervisors, the officers, and the citizens. I haven't been charged since I was patrolling back in the 90s. And I asked the hearing officer to just dismiss this, hoping I could keep it off my record with an old counsel, keep my records good. Then he brought up some old charges from my past back in the 90s that it sounded bad, but they were all dismissed. I even said all those were dismissed. I don't know why you're bringing that up. And he said, well, you've been on for 40 years. It's time for you to go. So and he told me if I did not retire, he was going to terminate me. My two charges as spoken were seven charges there. Alcoholic beverages, section A and E. Section A states while on duty. And again, that's why I did it at the end of when the shift was over and they were leaving. I didn't do it. I knew I shouldn't do it on duty. A member shall not consume or possess alcoholic beverages except in the proper performance of his or her duty. And then E, a member shall not transport alcoholic beverages on or in departmental property except in the performance of his police duty. So I was told by internal affairs that just having it there, even off duty, violated that the departmental policy. And then I was charged with soliciting business and intra-departmentalists within each other. So the soliciting business is just, let's see, soliciting business was just a reprimand to a maximum of 3-day suspension if you're found guilty. Well, the alcoholic beverage was the same, except if you violated section G, which I was not. Section G basically says that you're arrested for an alcohol violation, DUI. Then your first offense, if you're charged with G, is not even termination, it's 30 days. Then you're sent to alcoholic school to help you out. And then you sign a letter of second chance stating that you realize if you're charged again, you're arrested again, then you'll be terminated. I was not arrested. I don't even drink. The funny thing about all this is the irony. I don't even drink. I never have. Again, I was doing this as a reward to my officers because they were the best. So let's see.
So,
yes,
the Commissioner Wright, I may be able to save you a little bit of time and trouble here. Do you have any admirations going back into law enforcement? Were you out of law enforcement at this time?
I've always said that when I retire, I want to be retired. I didn't want to work anymore. Of course, I was forced to retire a little bit too early. And so I thought I'd get a little part-time job, but not. In fact, I'm going to be, wife and I will be moving out of state to be with our grandchildren.
Mr. Commissioner Wright, thank you for your 40 years of service in law enforcement. I'll make a motion for no action.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Metro Nashville Police Department.
Sorry to keep you waiting so long.
No, I live close by, so it's not a problem. This is Kathy. I am Kathy Morante, the Director of Professional Standards for the Metro Nashville Police Department. In June of 2021, Officer Salali Gomez, who was decommissioned on other matters at the time, along with a gentleman named Raymond Flaherty, who had recently been terminated by the department, were at a Walmart. There's video showing them coming in with a shopping cart with a plastic basket in it. There's video showing them putting items in the plastic basket as well as the cart. There's video showing them at the self-checkout, paying for all of the items in the grocery cart, but nothing in the basket. When after they passed the last point of entry, took an exit in order to pay for the items and did not do that. They were approached by a loss prevention officer. Our Walmarts normally just tell them to go on and, you know, keep the merchandise. They don't usually prosecute, but when stopped, and Ms. Gomez said, I'm an officer with the Metro Nashville Police Department, and showed her ID, at which point the police were called and she was arrested for the items she had stolen. A former officer, Flaherty, ran off, and she was clearly intoxicated. In addition, when she was placed in the patrol car and transported to booking, there is video which shows her being appropriately buckled in. She did not know at the time, because we did not at that time have in-car cameras, but that particular officer had a GoPro, and you can see her slip out of the handcuffs, out of the seatbelt. He says something to her about, don't take off that seatbelt. She then hits her head against the glass partition, and when they get to the booking, she insists that he gave her a fast ride and injured her, and took out a complaint against the officer. Fortunately, and she also insisted on going to the hospital. She did have some red marks from where she banged her head. It's very clear from the video that the officer had a jacket hanging from the front seat. It never moves. I mean, there was never even there was nothing like a ride where he stopped suddenly or anything like that. So that was what was pending against her, and she resigned before we completed the investigation.
Was she properly served?
Yes, sir, she was.
Commissioner Wright, default motion for decertification, the resignation, legal termination for violation of departmental policies and procedures.
Second, Ismail.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Ms.
Thank you, Director.
And I think that, did you get everybody?
Do we need to take up the surrender as an emotion?
We did that at the top.
The one at the very top?
No, there's not.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, that'll be tomorrow.
So we don't have to go through that. The Warren County.
You can just do it tomorrow.
Oh, we can do it right now. We're still on the record.
Is he here? Warren County?
No, it's a surrender. It's just a surrender.
Yeah.
Motion.
You can just accept it tomorrow.
I think we're done for today, right? Anything else we need to talk about?
All right.
And I apologize, I had 23 on the top.
Just be mindful, we're still on.
Turn it off.